Chapter 1: Origins in Ancient Egypt. To understand Hermeticism, we begin in the shadows of the pyramids, long before the Greeks, Romans, or even the Bible as we know it. The roots of Hermeticism are embedded in ancient Egyptian religion, particularly in the spiritual and philosophical teachings attributed to Thoth, the Egyptian god of writing, magic, and wisdom. Thoth was not merely a deity. He was believed to be the divine scribe who measured time, created language, and maintained the cosmic order. The ancient Egyptians credited him with inventing hieroglyphics and recording the judgments of the dead in the afterlife. To the initiate, Thoth was more than a myth. He was a model of divine intelligence, a symbol of humanity's latent power to understand the mysteries of the universe. When Greek culture merged with Egyptian during the Hellenistic period, Thoth was syncretized with the Greek god Hermes, forming the composite figure Hermes Trismegistus, literally Hermes the Thrice Great. The triple title denoted mastery of alchemy, astrology, and theurgy, the three sacred sciences of antiquity. This mythical figure would become the central author of a vast collection of texts, the Hermetic Corpus, written not by one person, but by a school of philosophers, priests, and mystics over centuries. These writings preserved the Egyptian mystery religion in a Greek philosophical form, setting the foundation for one of history's most enduring esoteric traditions. Chapter 2: The Hermetic Corpus. The Hermetic Corpus is a series of philosophical and spiritual texts written in Greek between the 1st and 4th centuries CE, though drawing from far older oral and temple traditions. These writings blend Greek philosophy, Egyptian theology, Babylonian astrology, and Persian mysticism into a rich tapestry of spiritual thought that captivated minds for millennia. There are two broad divisions: philosophical Hermetica, deep dialogues about the nature of reality, the mind, God, and the soul. These include texts like the Poimandres, the Asclepius, and the Corpus Hermeticum. The dialogues are often between Hermes and a student, emphasizing experiential knowledge over dogma. Practical Hermetica, alchemical, astrological, and magical writings that guided initiates through rituals, formulas, and mystical experiences. These included instructions on creating talismans, interpreting planetary influences, and transmuting both metals and the soul. Central to these texts is the belief in a single, universal divine source. All things emanate from this one, and the human soul is a spark of the divine, a microcosm of the macrocosm. Creation is seen not as a random accident, but as a divine unfolding, where spirit descends into matter, and through spiritual discipline, returns to the source. The purpose of Hermetic practice is gnosis, not intellectual knowledge, but direct mystical insight into divine truth. Gnosis allows the practitioner to ascend through the spheres of illusion and reconnect with the higher self. Hermetic writings also explore cosmic cycles, planetary spheres, and the notion that the stars are not distant, dead matter, but spiritual intelligences influencing the material world. This view would shape medieval astrology and the Renaissance view of a living cosmos. Chapter 3: Core Beliefs of Hermeticism. At its heart, Hermeticism is a path of self-transformation, aimed at aligning the individual with the cosmos. The core tenets include the principle of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without. The microcosm reflects the macrocosm. What happens in the heavens mirrors what happens in the human psyche. Divine unity, all is one. God is both immanent and transcendent. The divine can be found in every atom and every soul. The immortal soul. The human soul descends into matter and forgets its divine origin. The Hermetic path is one of awakening, purification, and ascent back to the source. Gnosis as liberation. True salvation is not belief. It is inner knowledge, attained through study, meditation, and initiation. Dogma is seen as a distraction from the real work of inner enlightenment, alchemy, and transformation. Alchemy is not just about metals. It is a metaphor for inner purification. The lead of ignorance is transformed into the gold of awakened consciousness. Reincarnation and karma. Souls return to Earth until they have learned their lessons and perfected themselves. Hermeticism also teaches the law of mentalism, that the universe itself is a mental construct, shaped by divine consciousness. This idea, echoed in the Kybalion and later echoed in esoteric philosophies and quantum mysticism, reinforces that consciousness is primary, not matter. This doctrine straddles the line between religion, philosophy, and science, a spiritual technology for elevating the self and understanding the universe. Chapter 4. Hermeticism in Late Antiquity. During the early centuries of the Roman Empire, Hermetic thought spread among Greek-speaking intellectuals. Alexandria, Egypt, a melting pot of cultures and ideas, became the primary hub of Hermetic activity. It was here that Neoplatonism, Jewish mysticism, and early Christian Gnosticism collided and cross-pollinated. Hermetic philosophy offered a compelling alternative to both Roman state religion, which was performative and rigid, and the rising force of Orthodox Christianity, which emphasized sin, obedience, and salvation through Christ alone. Hermeticism taught that salvation was not a collective experience imposed from above, but a personal and inner journey. The divine spark within could be awakened through contemplation, purification, and initiation. The decline of pagan philosophy under Christian rule led to the suppression of Hermetic texts. The Library of Alexandria, likely containing early Hermetic writings, was destroyed. Much knowledge was lost. Yet the Hermetic seed had been planted, and it would bloom again. Secret schools, initiatic traditions, and whispers of ancient knowledge would keep Hermetic ideas alive in subtle and symbolic form. Chapter 5. The Islamic Golden Age and Preservation. As the Western Roman Empire fell into decline, and with it many of the classical schools of thought, Hermeticism found refuge in the flourishing Islamic world. The Islamic Golden Age, roughly 8th to 13th centuries, became a sanctuary for Hermetic ideas, where they were translated, studied, and expanded upon by scholars in centers of learning such as Baghdad, Damascus, and Cordoba. In this era, texts from the Hermetic tradition were rendered into Arabic and often interpreted through the lens of Neoplatonism and Islamic theology. The name Hermes was often conflated with Idris, a prophet in Islamic tradition sometimes identified with Enoch. This created a unique theological bridge, whereby Hermeticism was perceived not as heretical, but as ancient wisdom passed down by prophets. The most famous Arabic Hermetic texts included treatises on alchemy, astrology, and geomancy. These works deeply influenced the likes of Jabir ibn Hayyan, Geber, a foundational figure in Islamic alchemy, and Al-Kindi, who tried to reconcile Greek philosophy with Islamic theology. Islamic Hermetic thinkers also played a key role in preserving classical Greek philosophy, including Plato and Aristotle, alongside Hermetic texts, transmitting them to Europe via Andalusia and Sicily. These translations would later ignite the flames of European intellectual revival. In Chapter 6, The Renaissance Rebirth, Hermeticism was reborn in 15th century Italy, when Greek manuscripts from Byzantium made their way westward just before the fall of Constantinople in 1453. Among these was a complete version of the Corpus Hermeticum, which came into the hands of Cosimo de' Medici, who ordered its translation. Marsilio Ficino, a philosopher and priest at the Platonic Academy in Florence, translated the Hermetic texts into Latin in 1463. He believed these writings contained the purest theological insights, predating even Moses, Plato, and the Bible. This misjudgment would later be corrected by scholars, but the impact had already been made. Renaissance thinkers interpreted Hermeticism as the universal key to understanding God, nature, and man. Art, architecture, and science were infused with Hermetic symbolism. Alchemy was seen as a spiritual science of transmutation. Astrology guided medicine, navigation, and royal decisions. Magic was considered the divine science of using natural laws for spiritual and material ends. Key figures included Giordano Bruno, who used Hermeticism to promote the idea of an infinite, divine universe filled with stars, each a living world. Pico della Mirandola, who proclaimed that human beings, through free will and knowledge, could ascend to the angelic realms or descend into beastliness. The Renaissance Hermetic revival emphasized that man was not a sinner, but a co-creator with God, capable of shaping his own destiny through knowledge and willpower. Philosophy, theology, and science were not yet seen as separate disciplines, and Hermeticism offered a framework to unify them. The Renaissance was not just a rebirth of classical learning, it was a reawakening of sacred science. Chapter 7: Persecution and Underground Transmission. The Catholic Church, seeing Hermeticism as dangerously empowering and potentially heretical, began suppressing its teachings during the Counter-Reformation. As centralized religious authority gained power, alternative spiritual frameworks were seen as threats to the orthodoxy. Giordano Bruno was burned at the stake in 1600, not just for his cosmology, but for his Hermetic beliefs. He taught that the universe was alive, eternal, and filled with divine presence. He rejected the narrow dogmas of the Church and upheld a Hermetic view of nature as sacred and infinite. As the Inquisition intensified, Hermeticism went underground. It survived in alchemy laboratories, secret societies, and esoteric orders. The Rosicrucians, emerging in the 17th century with cryptic manifestos, claimed to possess ancient Hermetic wisdom and spiritual science. The Freemasons, though largely secular today, originally included Hermetic and mystical symbolism in their rituals, tracing their lineage to ancient mystery schools and builders of sacred architecture. In England, John Dee, astrologer and mathematician to Queen Elizabeth I, developed a vast corpus of angelic and Hermetic work, including the enigmatic Enochian system of magic. Hermeticism thus became part of the West's occult underground, hidden from mainstream society, but alive in rituals, symbols, and manuscripts passed hand to hand. Initiation, secrecy, and allegory kept the flame burning through centuries of repression. Chapter 8: Hermeticism and Modern Occultism. In the 19th century, a wave of esoteric revival swept through Europe and America, reinvigorating Hermeticism for the modern world. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, founded in London in 1888, was the most prominent vehicle of this revival. It synthesized Hermetic principles with Kabbalah, astrology, ritual magic, tarot, and theurgy, offering a structured path of initiation and spiritual ascent. Famous members included Aleister Crowley, who founded the religion of Thelema and declared the new Aeon of Horus, emphasizing will and self-deification. W.B. Yeats, the Nobel-winning poet, who sought mystical insight and artistic inspiration through Hermetic ritual. Other movements flourished. Theosophy, founded by Helena Blavatsky, merged Hermeticism with Hindu and Buddhist ideas of karma, reincarnation, and cosmic evolution. The Kybalion, 1908, a new thought work attributed to 3 initiates, popularized Hermeticism in the language of self-help and mental science, outlining 7 Hermetic principles, such as mentalism, vibration, polarity, and rhythm. This period marked a shift. Hermeticism became accessible to the public, appearing in books, societies, and even newspapers. It adapted itself to modern needs, scientific, psychological, and mystical, without losing its core message of spiritual transformation. Chapter 9: Science, Symbolism, and Psychology. In the 20th century, Hermeticism intersected with depth psychology, systems theory, and even quantum physics. Carl Jung saw alchemical and Hermetic symbolism as the language of the unconscious mind. He believed that myths, dreams, and symbols were not primitive illusions, but psychological realities. The alchemical greatwork mirrored the individuation process, the integration of the self and the transcendent. Archetypes like the magus, the anima, and the shadow embodied Hermetic forces of transformation. Meanwhile, thinkers like Mircea Eliade Rudolf Steiner, and Joseph Campbell uncovered the universal structures of myth and esoteric wisdom that echoed Hermetic teachings. In the scientific world, Hermetic ideas of interconnectedness, vibration, and mind-matter correspondence found echoes in quantum mechanics, cybernetics, and holographic models of consciousness. Questions once confined to mysticism were now raised by physicists and philosophers. Is the universe consciousness-based? Can thought affect matter? Are all things fundamentally interrelated across space and time? The Hermetic vision of a living, conscious, symbolic cosmos began to resonate with new scientific paradigms. Chapter 10. Hermeticism Today. Today, Hermeticism is more alive than ever, though rarely under that name. It exists across a wide spectrum. Occult schools and ceremonial magicians continue Hermetic rituals and initiations. New Age thinkers use Hermetic principles for self-help, manifestation, and energy work. Artists, writers, and philosophers mine Hermetic themes for creative and intellectual inspiration. Scientists and futurists explore Hermetic notions of mind, energy, and metaphysics in simulation theory and post-materialist science. The internet has democratized access to Hermetic texts and communities. Platforms like Reddit, YouTube, Substack, and digital libraries have become the new temples of initiation. Hermeticism offers a coherent, integrative worldview in an age of uncertainty and fragmentation. It teaches that everything is connected. Consciousness is the foundation of reality. Symbols, rituals, and intention can transform self and world. Wisdom is experiential, and truth lies within. The Hermetic path does not ask for blind belief. It asks for practice, reflection, and gnosis, personal knowledge born of lived insight. As traditional institutions falter, Hermeticism offers something rare, a sacred science of the soul, accessible, elegant, and eternal. Final thought. The Hermetic legacy. Hermeticism is not a relic of the past. It is a thread, a golden filament running through centuries of human thought. It bridges the mystical and the rational, the magical and the scientific, the East and the West. Its message is eternal. Know thyself, and thou shalt know the universe and the gods. In an age of chaos and noise, Hermeticism whispers the ancient truth. You are more than you think. Reality is deeper than it appears, and transformation is always possible. To study Hermeticism is not merely to look back at the past. It is to enter a living current of spiritual evolution. Its flame still burns, and for those with eyes to see, the doors remain open.